look, is Rwanda a deterrent or not? Because from what I can see, it looks lovely.
Well, thus far it clearly isn't a deterrent, and I don't expect it to be a deterrent, not because it is a lovely place. Amnesty has been following this country for many years. It has a shocking human rights abuse. It has a totalitarian regime with a president who supposedly has polling results of 99% favourability in elections, and a regime that is currently engaged in stoking, if not actively involved, in refugee-producing conflict in East DRC, which it has been shockingly engaged in for years and decades.
OK, all right. I'll come back to you, Steve, obviously, on that. But, Jeremy, I'll bring you in now, because I was actually quite fascinated to learn that, I mean, Tony Blair was talking about a very similar scheme in Rwanda. And, in fact, the EU have already sent people over to Rwanda. I don't remember hearing too much of a clamour about all of that. It's just bad when we do it, is it?
Exactly. It seems to me that this is a case of quite a few countries are interested in these kinds of schemes. They're just trying to see if the UK can pull it off. And ultimately, we're facing a global situation where immigration levels are pretty much unprecedented. There's a lot of people around the world who want to leave their country and want to emigrate somewhere better. And if we don't do something about it, then the numbers that we've seen in recent years will, well, they could pale in comparison to the future numbers that will come.
OK, all right. Steve, I'll bring you back in now. Look, now, the cynic in me, potentially, Steve, would say that actually, as long as people are crossing the channel and as long as people are risking their lives and as long as it can be told that they're going to be deported to some kind of human rights hellhole, then charities like Amnesty can do rather well with donations. But if that isn't the case, and actually they're being sent somewhere quite nice and it's quite a good policy and it also acts as a deterrent to stop people coming across the channel and basically everyone's a winner, then Amnesty doesn't really have anything to live for in the UK when it comes to the channel. So actually, are you just pumping out negativity, frankly, to keep yourself in business?
No. Amnesty's been in business for decades, long before this was ever imagined by the present government, or indeed similar schemes imagined by previous governments. There's plenty of human rights work to be done both in the UK and elsewhere in the world, and quite frankly, Amnesty would much prefer to focus on that than have to be addressing such a dreadful policy by what could be and should be a country that leads on human rights respect, rather than leaps for the gutter and encourages other countries to do likewise.
OK, how do you respond to that, Jeremy? Steve thinks that we're leaping for the gutter here.
I think that's a ridiculous thing to say, to be honest. The policy of groups such as Amnesty, maybe not Amnesty in particular, but certainly the open borders-ish groups, seems to be of more safe and legal routes from everywhere in the world in unlimited quantities and with no end. And I think when you look at how many people came to the UK illegally last year and claimed asylum, having come illegally, where do you draw the line? Is 45,000 not enough? Should we be taking in 100,000 a year? You've got to draw a line in the sand somewhere. And if we don't draw it now, the numbers are only going to keep getting higher and higher and higher. OK, Steve, how would you respond to the charge that a lot of people who disagree with the Rwanda scheme or the government's illegal migration bill as a whole are just very loud, virtue signalling people who actually are out of touch with the reality of the country? Because the opinion polling would appear to suggest that that is the case.
Well, to be frank, I'm as loud as I'm permitted to be. I don't have a TV station to make my views known. I rely upon invitations such as yours to share them, and I will do so if I'm given the opportunity. Frankly, I'm concerned that much of the noise generated much by the government, which has so much more opportunity to make noise than Amnesty or anyone that I might support does, is detracting from very serious things, not least. Let's, for example, take the legislation that is currently being proposed by the government that you say is largely supported by the British people, by perhaps a small majority. Do they know, for example, that that very bill would mean that a British person trafficked into this country, or a British person who was born to someone trafficked into this country, would be deprived of their citizenship for that and permanently excluded from their own country? Do they know that? No, because we have so much nonsense and noise by the government over trying to do something which frankly is disgraceful in many ways, not least the way I've just described, And it's very difficult for people like I to have sufficient voice to be able to displace that, but I'll keep trying.
Well, there you go. And for what it's worth, Steve, you know, we might disagree on a lot of stuff, but I'm very glad that you do come on and talk about it, because it enables us to have debates like this. And so we are very grateful for you coming on. I'm going to lob it over to you, Jeremy. Do you think the British public fully understand this? Do you think that if they knew more detail on it, as Steve was saying, that they will be more opposed to it all?
Ultimately, what the public are sick of seeing is increased numbers, increased burdens on their local communities, and the government trotting out plans year after year after year that ultimately do nothing to address the scale of the challenge. This is the first time the government have actually come up with a plan that might actually create the sufficient levels of deterrence to stop illegal immigration into the UK, or at least significantly reduce it, and then do something about it as well. I think that's what people care about. They might not know the specific ins and outs of every single line in the reasonably long bill, but they certainly seem to agree with the gist of it, and that's what most polling shows.